So I got this in the mail today. Let's get to it. I'm guessing this is where the second video is going to start. I'm not entirely certain. I don't know. It depends on how I edit the thing. Whatever. Um, I've been a bit of an Eaglemoss Star Trek Starships collection kick, don't you think? I mean, I've got three of them in the last 2 months, and now I'm going to be adding a few more. Got this. Oh, wow. Hmm. I thought those would come with individual covers. Hmm. I guess not. Okay. So, hmm. Okay. So it just seems kind of strange that all of the ships that I've collected up to this point, they've been kind of ships that have had varying degrees of controversy. First, it was the USS Calvin, which was controversial because it was part of the 2009 movie. Then it was the NX-01 Enterprise because Akira Prize, and then it was the STD version of the USS Enterprise NCC 1701 because STD. So far I've been getting fairly they've all come from controversial stuff. Although in my opinion, Enterprise the show was not as bad as I had thought it was. 19 years ago. So I changed my mind about that. But the similarity between all three of the Eaglemoss ships that I've gotten already is they're either XL class or they're special edition, which means they're on the 8.5 to 10-inch range. The STD Enterprise being about 10.5 inches, the USS Calvin being just under 8 inches. So that's the range we had to work with. But those are their kind of larger $75 offerings, whether it's a special edition or an XL edition or yeah, XL series, I guess is what they call it. I'm not certain. Um, those are their larger, more expensive versions. But they started out when they were making these Star Trek, almost said Star Wars, Star Trek ships. They were actually much smaller, and they were going for about 45 dollars. And so it is here that I'm going to be jumping into for this video. I could have worded that a little better. Uh, so how does it stay in there? I guess it just doesn't. Whatever. Okay. So, anyways, first up is the surprisingly doesn't have a picture attached to it, the SS Emmette from Enterprise. What the ruddy heck is the SS Emmette? You, if you watch the show, you know what it is, but you may not recognize the name because, well, the name was never said on screen. The SS Emmette is featured prominently, if very briefly, in the opening credits of Star Trek Enterprise. Where's the base? There's the base. Okay. There's some sort of paper in the bottom. What's this? Is this just does this just look pretty, or is this actually a thing? Oh, okay. That does not come out. I thought the white in the bottom comes out. It doesn't. It really surprises me. This doesn't have a cover of any kind, just as is. Anyways, the SS Emmette, die-cast metal on top, but not on the bottom. Oh, the wings are die-cast metal. Or pylons. Yeah, they're pylons. You may not recognize the SS Emmette right away, but that is the name of the ship, or at least officially that's the name of the ship. But you may not immediately recognize it because, well, when does Starfleet ever have ships like this? Well, let's see, how can I say this? You'll only recognize this. You may not recognize it from this angle, but you'll definitely recognize it from this angle. Because in the opening credits, you see the Emmette come down across the screen like this. Now, do you recognize it? That ship has a name. I don't know about the class. I don't think they named the class, but this is the SS Emmette. And this is the ship that you saw in the opening credits. Now, of course, because this is one of their smaller ones. It's only this is only $30. So, oh, okay, yeah. So this is only $30. Or is that right? No, I'm sorry, it's $25. I'm sorry, it's $25. This is the average size of Eaglemoss ship designs. The average they're about this big. It's the XL and special editions where they're about 8 to 10.5 inches. Or the Deep Space Nine, or Space Station Deep Space Nine, I'm told is like a whole foot in diameter. Whoa. That'll be worth getting. They don't worry about putting these in scale with each other, so it doesn't really matter. Um, Anyways, the Bussard collectors are transparent red. I know these aren't going to turn out very well. Um, there's a line in the original series, I believe it's called Balance of Terror, where the Romulan Star Empire makes its debut, and we see was it the Romulan Bird of Prey, or was it just Romulan whatever the ship was called? I'm totally blanking on what it was called. I mean, it's only a 54-year-old series at this point. There's a line of dialogue in there, and I had to look this up just because I'm not, again, not up to date on uh, the trivia. But there's a line of dialogue that says that the unidentified Romulan ship had stolen their design from Starfleet or a Federation ship, or was like was it United Earth Space Probe Agency at the time? It had stolen a Starfleet design in order to make it. So basically, the Romulan ship comes in like this, and apparently when they were creating the series for Enterprise, they created this to be the Federation or Starfleet equivalent of the thing. So that's what this is supposed to represent. The mold details are just fine. It does have a limited. I'll say it has a limited. Um, what's the word I'm looking for? Aztec pattern. There is an Aztec pattern present, but it's not. It's not particularly well defined. It's symmetrical. It's almost symmetrical except for the top. Hmm. And then the warp engine nacelles on the side. I know you can't see it here, but there are tiny blue spots or little blue paint spots to represent the engine warp engine grills. They're not transparent or semi-transparent plastic. They're actually the warp grills are actually painted on. So, although I must say, on this, just because it's so small, I really hope they don't make a larger one of this at some point. Although, I suppose it's not, the Emmette is not known well enough to justify having its own, larger version. So this that's kind of the reason I got this, just because like you're never going to see a larger version of it, so it'd be nice to have at least something of it. So yeah. Um, no shuttle bay that I can tell. This is the underside, and it looks more or less the same as the top side. It's pretty much the same. There's not much difference you could tell. Why did they design the SSM if it was only going to appear for like a split second or for a couple seconds on the opening credits? Oh, the warp engine nacelles are ABS plastic as well. So what's the function of the Emmette? Well, the whole idea of the opening credits sequence, and I very much doubt that I'll be able to show it in this video. I'll post a link to a clean version of the opening credits, something like that. The whole point of it is to show the progression of not just human technology but human exploration across vast distances, and so it's a montage of a sailing ship, which is called the HMS Enterprise, spelled with a Z, and then there's weather balloons and Robert Goddard, and there's the 1960s or late 50s, early 60s NASA stuff, and then there's the International Space Station, and then you see I can't think of what it is. I think they created a space shuttle orbiter design just for the show. I think it was based on a NASA design that was ultimately not built. Just to say, hey, because it was 2001 when the show was made, so whatever. And then the producers wanted to show some kind of starship that was like the immediate predecessor to the NX-01. So like you wouldn't see it on the show because it would be old hat by the time the NX-01 shows up. So that's where the SS Emmett comes in. And again, this is the only angle that you see of the ship is from the back. And honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm disappointed that the exhausts are not painted in. There's 7 impulse engines on the back of this thing, and none of them have been painted, or at least they glow blue when you see it, but here they're just charcoal gray or black, just kind of, and they painted them in, and that's it. So I'm kind of disappointed. Those should have been painted, and they're not. So I mean, considering how prominent enough it is, hey, it got my attention that that's a detail they should have had, but they didn't. So, eh, whatever. There's also not um, any anti-collision lights or navigation lights anywhere on here. That I'm aware of, the Emmette does not have a navigational deflector. Usually they're fairly prominent. They're at the front somewhere. Usually there are exceptions, but in this case, no. There's no navigational deflector. There's no shuttle bay that I can tell. Although again, I don't. There isn't a lot of information on the Emmette. It's a one-time throwaway, and that's it. That's all that the Emmette is. I felt that. What was that? Not sealed properly. That's something I haven't talked about in any of the previous videos. For all of these, nowhere on any of them is there a visible screw or even a screw hole cover. They're just they must be like snapped together when there's something like they paint them up, make them all look needle nice and neat, and then they squeeze them together, and then that's it. Or they glue the parts together. They definitely glue some parts together. So, but wow, high quality models where the display stands don't plug into it, but they like attach to the exterior, and there's no visible screws on any of them. Very impressive. Very, very impressive. I really like that. These are definitely collector grade stuff. So, yep, there's the Emmette. And then it also comes with a display stand. Because why not? And it comes with a name on the bottom, SS Emmette. For those of you who don't know, SS means starship. I don't think it means spaceship. The NX-01 Enterprise was not called SS Enterprise. However, in the rumored fifth season, or the supposed fifth season, when the Enterprise got her major refit, she was going to be relabeled SS Enterprise. So, yeah. Again, here's the same display. Die-cast metal on the top, felt on the bottom. Don't you dare stick on there. And then the display stand, fork-looking thing. This display stand is the same size as what you would ordinarily find on one of the others. So, and then right. Oh, that fits perfectly right between the two exterior impulse engines. Seven impulse engines. I can't. Seven impulse engines on a Starfleet ship, on an Earth ship. I don't even. It's tilted upward at a oh so slight angle. Let's see. Yeah. So you could. It's all of them are tilted up a little bit, but it seems a little more prominent here. So you know, I've got it here. I might as well. Oh yeah, like you totally didn't think of this earlier, and you're trying to pass it off as like, oh, random thought about it. Here's the NX-01. Surprise. It's is this 10 inches or 9? I think it's like 8.5 inches or something like that. Maybe it's 7, or perhaps it's 6 inches. No, it's over 8. It's 8 inches or larger. I do not know if these are in scale. I doubt it. All I know is like these are the sizes, and there is an NX-01 that's the same size as this, by the way. Again, this is the common size. This is the extra large size. So, anyways, I don't know if these are to scale or not with each other, but I do want to show at the very least these are the size differences between an XL size and a regular size Eaglemoss. So, yep, there's that. I'm not, and again, now that I'm looking at it, there's no dish. There's no. I mean, even the NX-1, this little band of crap on the front here that I still don't like to this day. It doesn't have a navigational deflector, which is what every trekker knows is what they use to protect the ship when she's traveling at warp from getting struck by little pieces of dust and the smallest of meteorites and stuff like that. If the navigational deflector can't block it, then they'll just steer out of the way. So that's what the navigational deflector is. So if you ever wonder what that is, that's what that is. And then something that surprised me, which I thought previously was exclusive to the XL and the special editions, it turns out that the regular sized Eaglemoss ships have magazines as well, and this one covers the SS Emmette. I wonder if there's an alternate one of the NX-01 Enterprise, because I was really disappointed with the content that was in there. So the Emmette type, and again, this is the only one. The Emmette is the SS Emmette is the only one of its kind that you've ever seen. It's never seen on screen ever again. So the fact that they're calling it the Emmette type, I don't even know where the name comes from. It's probably one of the producers' secretaries or something like that, which they're known to do in Star Trek, or at least they were. It's the Emmett type. It was launched in the 22nd century. It doesn't specify. It has a crew of 30 and a length of 130 meters. The type is a test vehicle. Affiliation is United Earth. Huh. Launched in the 22nd century. Length is 130 meters approximately. Crew of 30 and a top speed of warp 1 plus. Ooh, so she's actually very slow. Hmm. I thought she was like warp 2 or warp 3, something like that. But if it's a test vehicle, it's probably like their very first starship ever. So like, okay, we can do test vehicles that are really small that carry like one or two people. Like maybe I'm guessing the Emmett is like one of the ships where it's like that's the first time they tried to make an actual starship that could was deliberately going outside of the solar system. Let's find out. Oh, this is a really nice shot right here. It's very pretty. It's a nice shot, and you can see right there. There's the only time you see the Emmett is right there, which I totally haven't shown off on the corner over there by this point. But yeah, that's where it comes from. That's the USS or that's I'm sorry, that's the SS Emmett. Force of habit much? The SS Emmett was one of Earth's first warp-powered starships, whose architecture was similar to that of later Starfleet vessels. Huh? It features an elongated saucer section where, with pylons in the shape of wings on either side onto which warp nacelles were attached. The SS Emmett's rocket engines, not impulse engines, apparently. Oh, maybe they're not impulse engines. The SS Emmett's rocket engines were seen glowing briefly as it flew over the Luna colonies sometime between the late 21st century and the early 22nd century. The Emmett's rocket engines were used to power the ship at sublight speeds, as impulse engines were not introduced until slightly later on the similar-looking Warp Delta ship. So these are actually so these might very well be chemical fueled engines, huh? The SS Emmett was one of Earth's earliest warp-powered starships. It was in service sometime after the launch of the Phoenix, Earth's first successful warp-powered ship in 2063, and the development of the NX class of starships, the Enterprise, in the early 22nd century. When the Emmett was first launched, it had a top speed of between Warp 1 and Warp 2. As a consequence, the Emmett could not travel too far from Earth, and it was mainly used to test warp spaceflight technology, which makes sense. It's a test vessel. The vessel looked almost exactly the same. Or, no, I'm sorry. As warp technology improved, the Emmett was replaced by the Warp Delta starship. This vessel looked almost exactly the same as the Emmett, but instead of rocket engines at the rear, is equipped with more advanced impulse engines. That is to say, it had impulse engines, period. Ah, this looks great. So the SS Emmett was a test ship. That makes sense. That makes sense. Emmett type starships existed in the mirror universe. Several of these ships were seen bombarding the lunar colonies in an alternate version of the opening credits for Enterprise. Yeah, it was. Although they still show the Emmett coming over the camera or whatever it is real close, but actually I guess they show the Emmett coming over it like this, except that they added some weapons firing at the surface. So that's the only variation to it. So whatever. And then down here is the successor to the Emmett, the so-called Warp Delta. I'm trying to get a better angle of it. So that's a Warp Delta. But anyways, yeah, they actually did a full CG model and everything, even though you were only going to see it the one time. So, oh wow. Yeah, it's John Eves. I knew it. Like I've seen this. This looks just like uh, uh, what is it? It looks like something from like the TNG era. I was like, that's got to be John Eves. But yeah, it is. It's John Eves. because it says his name right up here. And then you can see very hollowed out hulls. So it's kind of a central fuselage section with a pair of support girders coming out either side. That is straight up John Eves. What am I thinking of? It would have been the. Uh, what does that remind me of? It reminds me of the. Oh, the captain's yacht. The captain's yacht off the Enterprise E. That's what that looks like. Oh, cool. Before Eve started working on the series Enterprise, he drew up this stunning poster which featured many real life legendary craft alongside ships from Star Trek. When he presented the poster to Rick Berman, he was told that the producers had been thinking about creating a similar idea for the opening titles of Enterprise. Oh, how about that? Cool. That was the montage of human exploration, the various types of ships and whatever over time. So, yeah, they did think about it. What's interesting here is that you see, um, is that Vostok? And I can't think of what the very first Russian capsule was. What was that thing called? I don't remember. Is it Salyut or whatever it is? Anyways, um, here's the poster they're talking about. So there's a Russian ship there. Gemini, Mercury. Is that the X2 or is it the Bell X1? I think it was X1. I can't remember. There's the X15. Or is it X5? I think it's X15. There's Apollo. There's the Phoenix from Star Trek First Contact. And I think you guys know the rest. Oh, and then, let's see, is the Enterprise in here? Oh, no, it would have been beforehand. There's the SRS. Oh, um, this, 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 this Delta shaped ship, that's something that NASA was floating around for a while. It was supposed to be single stage to orbit, but single stage to orbit is just damn expensive and also damn near impossible for current technology. So, like, that's something that NASA had floated around for a while. In reality, they'd floated it around, but alas, that did not. That ended up not happening. So we're going back to the old capsule that falls down backwards and does splashdowns in the form of the Orion capsules, whatever. And you can see down here the different types of engines. Because I mean, if the only time you see it is from behind, then you kind of got to make the backside look better than the front and all the other sides. It looks like they went with this third option right here. You can see a sample of what they were planning here. This was the illustration that the producers picked for the design of the SS Emmett. Eves drew several alternatives for how the rear engines of the craft could look, and the producers thought that the powerful circular rocket engines best suited the needs of the ship they wanted. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, that makes sense to me that they would make it kind of narrow. Whoa, okay. Oh, opening titles of Enterprise. The opening titles for Enterprise featured inspiring imagery showing humanity's path to reach the stars. Here we talk to the people who created the titles and look at the ships and people featured in them. Okay. The producers wanted the opening credits of Enterprise to feel much more contemporary to our own times and to connect the series to the true history of exploration on Earth and space. I believe that. Ah, yep. Here's all these are just freeze frames from each of the moments in the show. Sometimes you see a cast member's name, sometimes you don't. The only on-screen appearance of the SS Emmett came in the opening titles. Oh, I see. Oh, I see. That's a continuation. Okay. It was never seen in an episode, although the visually similar Warp Delta class, did make appearances in the Enterprise episodes The Expanse and Twilight. I believe that's the last episode of season 2 and the first episode of season 1, something like that. No, no, I'm sorry. No, it was in the first episode. It was the last episode of season 2, and then there was an episode in. Was Twilight in season 3? Yeah, Twilight was in season 3. The SSM was created by illustrator John Eves to fill in an evolutionary gap between the Phoenix and the launch of the NX-01. It was the missing link between humanity's first warp-powered starship and the first Warp 5 vessels nearly 80 years later. Oh, so the Emmett is 80 years different. It was 80 years before the NX-1. Huh. Wow, that's really Most of the imagery featured in the opening titles came from pioneering ships and people from real Earth history. It started with an early maritime explorers such as the Polynesians turning to flying pioneers like Charles Lindbergh, Amelia Earhart, and Chuck Yeager. As humanity reached for the stars, the imagery turned towards space travel and the launch of rockets, footage of legendary astronauts such as Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, and the flights of the space shuttle program. Finally, it transitioned seamlessly from the real world into the Star Trek world, and the appearance of the Phoenix, SS Emmette, and Enterprise NX-01. Trivia: Amelia Earhart was one of the historical figures seen in the opening credits of Enterprise. She was the first female aviator to fly solo across the Atlantic. In 1937, she vanished mysteriously over the Pacific during her attempted round the world flight. Recently, a set of human remains were found on a remote island, which some claimed are those of Earhart, but this is yet to be proven. According to the Voyager episode, The 37s, Earhart was abducted by an alien species named the Briori and taken to the Delta Quadrant. Star Trek Voyager at its finest. Although, I think that wasn't the 37s like season one? It was either season one finale or season two premiere, something along those lines. It was an okay episode. Voyager, like I said, Voyager was hitting us. So. The NASA rover Sojourner was also seen in the opening credits. It was? Oh, yeah, it was. It landed on Mars in 1997 with the aim of analyzing the composition of the Martian rocks and atmosphere. The Sojourner was also seen in the Enterprise episode Terra Prime, where the Mars Historical Preservation Society, fictional, had located the now derelict rover and erected a monument in its honor. The Space Shuttle Enterprise also featured in the opening titles. Star Trek creator Gene Roddenberry and many members of the original series cast were in attendance when the shuttle was rolled out in 1976. A full 10 years after the show that was canceled became a pop culture icon. Suck it, NBC executives. I'm kidding. And then the last page. Uh, Keep in mind, and I haven't addressed this before, but keep in mind these smaller ships, because they're only $24, $25. These smaller ships, these smaller replicas, these are like a monthly magazine. That's what these are. So you sign up for a subscription, and then they give you a new one each month. So on the last page here, it shows the shuttlecraft Alice from that one episode of Voyager that I totally can't remember the name of. I think it was called Alice or something like that. And then it shows down here a number of other kits of similar size. Oh, want 5% off your next order? Sign up to our newsletter and receive a unique discount code. Sign up to be Sign up to be the first to hear when starships are back in stock. All orders are delivered direct to your door. Any damage is replaced, no questions asked. That sounds familiar. That sounds bizarrely familiar. I wonder if I should have pulled that out. Um, yeah, I'll mention it here just because why not? It has nothing to do with the Emmett, but I'll mention it anyways. Um, when I got the NX-01, um, one of the things that I complained about, it seems to me there were two things I complained about. There were two things. What was it? One of them was I can't remember. But anyways, one of the things I complained about is that the display stand, while solidly built enough, the tines, the fingers on it don't really grip as well as I would like it to. And considering how freaking heavy the Enterprise NX1 is, or at least this diecast, or the considering how heavy it is, the bite of the fingers on the underneath, you can see it's very loose. It's very, very loose. And it doesn't grip nearly as well as I would like it to. So I did complain. I wrote to Eaglemoss and I said, it was the magazine was one of the things, but the other thing was the display stand. So it was a two-part thing. I complained about, well, this content is not what I was expecting. Did you make another version, a different magazine that I could, buy separately or whatever? And then the other thing I complained about is like and this isn't a quality control issue, it's an engineering problem. Okay. So, anyways, I told them that I didn't like how loose the display stand is, and you really got to fight to get it on there, and the friction actually isn't very good. Like the friction isn't supposed to be super strong because you don't want to scratch the paint. But that being said, the fingers should be longer, and they're just not long enough. So I'm usually terrified just because it's so freaking heavy that's going to wiggle off and then eventually it's going to nose off and it's going to go flying in a way that you really, really don't want it to go flying. So I was emailing them to ask if they had they had done an updated version of this display stand or if other people had complained about the display stand as well. I got a response back. Actually, their email responses are kind of slow. But anyways, let's see. I'm not thinking here. I wasn't planning on bringing this up, but like now that the magazine actually brought it up, oh yeah, by the way, the magazine. But since the magazine brought it up, I might as well. So, anyways, just to prove how strange this is, I complained about the display stand. I was just asking to see if they'd done an updated version, not for a replacement, but I was just asking about an update for it. Okay, and for whatever reason, Eaglemoss sent me a second kit. I don't know why, but they did. I'm not entirely certain. I was like, I wasn't complaining about whether it was damaged or something. I was just asking if there was a structurally better version that you'd engineered due to customer feedback or whatever it is. So yeah, I've got two of these things now. So this has been sitting in the box for how long? 3 weeks at this point? 2 weeks at this point? Something like that. So like, what the hell am I gonna do with this? I think my like if they say they don't want it back, then I think I'll give it to somebody or something like that. So I know a couple of people who might like having this. So look forward to this. I don't know. Like I don't need two of these things. Whatever. You know, it'd be kind of awesome. Maybe I should have like somebody make me a custom display stand so I can place like one on top of the other, like happened in that one episode of season 4 where the Enterprise and the Columbia were belly to belly with each other. Maybe that's what I should do. It's just weird. It's weird, I tell you.